Yeah, I agree with everything Chris said. I haven't agreed with a lot of that Neil has to say. I guess I just have two basic questions. One, I'm curious of the depth of the water at 13 to 17 miles out, as I need to know if it's technology able to do at this point. And number two, I want to know what has changed since Jones Beach that this might actually be financially viable.
Well, the depth of the water is about 80 feet, 80 plus feet, and the technology has grown, has advanced to the point where you can do those.
There have been windmills built anywhere in the world in 80 feet.
Yes, there are projects going on in Europe right now.
Deeper.
That are happening. I think
they're finished.
I think there's one at 120 actually. So the technology has grown. The second, what's the difference between today and then? I think there are a number of things. I think the technology has gotten better, has become more efficient. It's still expensive. There is better interconnection capabilities today. I think the other part of it is there is the potential for more federal funding and state funding. Well, federal funding right now, we'll go to the state. In terms of, as Kevin mentioned, the production tax credits, the ITC. There are some discussions about amendments to the federal stimulus package to provide expanded financial benefits for wind projects that were left out in the original program. So I think there's a number of differences. I think the other thing, based on the information we receive from the development community and the RFI, as well as our consultants, is a larger project is more cost effective for them. Again, cost is a relative term. You have to compare renewables to renewables. So I think the size is one that makes sense for the development community. I think the collaborative that we have around us is going to open up potential opportunities for outside funding. As I say, the technologies become better, become more efficient, which produces more power.
And Jim, also you have more federal production tax credits available. You have a president, 7 mid-Atlantic governors all proposing this. You're getting much more track record experience in Europe, which will be transferable here for more better projects in terms of reliability, efficiency. We have a 45 by 15 program now in the state that the PSC is administering, which is requiring utilities that we try to voluntarily comply with, that Con Edison may be prescribed to achieve as we try to comply and introduce more renewable sources of power into our state. So I think the legislative climate, the political climate, the tax climate, and the wind industry expertise climate has all changed significantly from the last project.
With all that being said, and I think, and I agree with Neil, the project's too small. Why waste our time on getting ourselves 100 megawatts? Let's just go for 750 right now.
Well, we need to see what the price is. And to answer Neil's question, we did this interconnection study originally. We looked at, the idea came from, all right, we're in the Rockaways, Con Ed is in the Rockaways. Again, I was looking for partners, to share the cost. And then we looked at the potential to interconnect into the 2 different systems that we have there in Zone J and K. And we determined that with some upgrades, 350 megawatts was about the most that we could do. And that's where the 350 came from. And then if we did some more significant upgrades, we could go up to 700 and then to 1,050. We actually have a third phase, which would be possible. But also being realistic, before we bite off more than we could chew. And since our country, the United States of America, hasn't gotten one project off the ground yet, start slowly. And so we did the interconnection study in sort of phases where we go from 350 to 700 to 1050. That was the logic behind some of that.
I would also point out that we have been incorporating technology changes in our view, so we're very much aware of where the technologies in terms of turbines are going. The 2015 to 2017 time is the cusp right now as to what's going to be commercially viable in terms of larger wind turbine systems. So that's very much involved in this. And I would also point out the 350 was chosen because of the supply chain right now. Again, based on that RFI and the information we're getting from our consultants, is That's about what the supply chain can take in the short period of time with incremental growth as we go forward.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other trustee comments?
One more, Mr. Chairman.
How far along relative to where we are is the Cape Wind project? Would you say they're
9 years out.
No, they are.
9
No,
years ahead of us.
no. Is it really? So they have gone through kind of the cost analysis, the environmental issues. You know, so there are obviously. I would hope that we would be having dialogues with those
Yes.
parties as to kind of the lessons they've learned and kind of hopefully leverage off some of that knowledge.
We will. We are a member of AWEA, the American Wind Energy Association. So we're able to get access to that information. But Cape Wind is much further ahead. What got approved yesterday was the actual application with the MMS. They've gone through their environmental studies. They've gone through the, I believe, the Public Service Commission process there as well. So they're much further ahead. But whatever we could glean and utilize from other projects, that Delaware or Rhode Island, we will. We got some people
Thank
from the
you.
phone.
Anybody from the public wish to be heard on this? First one to sign up is Dr. Cordero. Just want to remind everybody that we have a strictly enforced 3-minute rule.
Thank you. I hate to sound a sour note on this, but I would urge some caution about relying on this particular project to serve in any committed way to supply the future supply of electricity on Long Island, even at this very preliminary stage right now. The potential cost of this project is extremely high. Before even considering the complexities of siting these kind of devices and equipment 13 miles plus out in the ocean, you have a cost of transmission which you've already bounded or studied in the range of almost $1 billion, just under $1 billion. A clue about the higher costs or the high costs of these projects comes from Cape Wind. The cost of that project has increased tremendously, and now we're talking about $2 billion for the 400 megawatts that may come from that project. And that project would be, just on its face, simpler to do than a project 13 miles out in the Atlantic Ocean. It's a very significant risk, this cost factor, to proceed and pursue and get committed to a project like this, especially a project that only delivers 30% of its capacity on an average basis. We're talking about 300 megawatts to 700 megawatts, but the way wind systems work, that's the maximum capacity. On average, you're only going to get 30% of that. So the usable capacity is a lot less. In the end, I fear that reality will set in, and LIPA will find itself alone with respect to its partners, and its partners won't agree to sign on. And maybe at that time, and hopefully at that time, this is not the case, LIPA may be so committed to the project that Long Island ratepayers get saddled with the cost or get left holding the bag. I know historically, these projects have been justified on the fact that even though they're costly and there's a lot of complexity involved, we got to start somewhere. We've got to provide clean energy, we got to get into renewables, and I've heard those arguments many times before in my 40 years in the utility business. I heard them in the 70s, I heard them in the 80s, heard them in the 90s, and many of the projects that were built on that basis are now gathering dust or rusting right now, and we've got to learn from that lesson, and we've got to be mindful of what history is trying to tell us about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And I just think if people did more in the 70s and 80s, we'd be a lot further ahead today than we are today, where we are today.